What's going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and I thought it would be interesting to go over some books that I saw coming up in this big signature heritage comic auction, specifically some Gaines file copies. I noticed in this auction specifically, there are a ton of them in this one. If you're not familiar with Gaines file copies, we'll talk about it a little bit in the video, but these are super high grade, typically Golden Age books. A lot of these are these pre-code horror, pretty cool books. Talk about those, some of the prices, and what I've been seeing with those books over the last, feels like about 6 months. Let's get into this. All right, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So what we're talking about here is in this big signature heritage auction, there are a bunch of Gaines file copies, but basically Bill Gaines from EC, these are his copies of each book that he had. And he didn't just have one, he had multiples, usually like 12 of each book, and they are generally in very high grade. This is the reason why those pre-code horror EC books tend to have 9.4s, 9.6s, 9.8s, even some 9.9s out there. It's because he had 12 of these for most cases. Sometimes I think it's maybe 9, but generally a lot of them, and they were just kept in pristine condition. And so there's a lot of high grade copies out there. That's why a lot of times with EC books, you'll see a whole bunch down at the lower grades. That's like what you expect with Golden Age. And then for whatever, you're just like, when you're looking at the census, you're like, man, like, how are there so many of these really high grade copies? And it's because they are almost always all Gaines file copies. So we're going to get into this, talk about some pricing with them, and just what I've seen over the last, it feels like about 6 months or so. So if you're not familiar, there's this there's this big heritage comic auction that's coming up, actually kicks off today, and there are a lot of big books in this. We've got that Fantastic Four 196, Amazing Fantasy 15 90, bunch of original art, like super expensive stuff, and kind of some other super expensive stuff, but not quite at that tier. This is usually in the 4 to 5 figure mark. We've got these Gaines file copies from EC. And so if you search within this auction and you search for Gaines file copy, it comes up with 32, but it's actually 31. One of them's coming back. Maybe it's in the description for something else. I don't know why it's in there, but it's not a Gaines file copy. But there's 31 Gaines file copy EC comics that are part of this auction, which generally, when I'm tracking all these different auctions, this is on the high end. I don't know if I've seen this many in one auction before. It's possible I have, and I just haven't noticed it, but 31 Gaines file copies in one auction is significant. And the reason I wanted to talk about this some is it's actually something I've talked about in some prior videos, that I've noticed a big demand for these Gaines file copies, where they are selling for huge numbers, much bigger than what they used to. And so this is one of those areas that I've seen that I like to follow what trends are going on, like what people are interested in, what people are buying, that kind of thing. And I know some people, they're going after like the hot spec market. I follow Golden Age books. So this is what I'm seeing in the Golden Age market. And I've been seeing these Gaines file copies just getting huge numbers. And I'm guessing, I don't know if it's one person that owns these, or that owned these, or multiple people, or what, but I'm guessing they saw the same thing I was seeing and decided, hey, maybe it's time I sell these. Everything's, this is real hot right now. People are really interested in them. And there's some pretty incredible ones in here. Now, it is hit and miss. I mean, it's like with any Golden Age book, a lot of times the Golden Age, you're buying for the cover. Like, the cover is a big part of it. And when you're talking about EC books, there are definitely covers that are more desirable than others. And an example of one, I've got these ordered from highest price to lowest with their current bids. And this is one of the most famous ones of all time, Crime Suspense Stories number 22 in a 9.4. Now, I did talk about this one in my, I'm pretty sure I talked about this one in my video where I was going over the big books that are in this auction. And I talked about kind of what I thought the price might go for this one, because one has sold before in a 9.4 not all that long ago, and it wasn't this copy. They're actually 2 graded higher as well. So you can see down here in the description, there's this says 1 and 942 higher. I thought the census said that there were 2. Let's check. Let's check. Pretty sure the census said that there were 2. We'll see. Yeah, there's 2. Yeah, there's 2 and 9.4 and 2 higher. So I don't think that this has changed since then. I'm pretty sure that that this was because the prior one that had sold was on Comic Connect, and it was definitely a different copy. Like, it looked different. But regardless of that, if we go over to Crime Suspense Stories number 22, just to kind of get an idea of the pricing for this, the last 9.4 that sold for just over $90,000. You can see it was a Gaines file copy, 90,112. I had estimated in that prior video that I figured this one would probably go for around the same number. That's my guess. It's at 56,400 right now. It has some work to do, but these books tend to get quite a bit. It depends on the book, but can get a lot of bidding when it hits the live auction. And you can see in 13 hours and counting. But if you're wondering, a lot of these have this this little like 4 of 12, 6 of 12, 1 of 12. This 12 is the number of copies that he had. So there were 12 Gaines file copies. They were ordered by, I believe, Bob Overstreet. Because I had a Gaines file copy before, and it came with a little certificate, and he ordered them based on what he had interpreted the condition at that time. Now, that was before pressing and cleaning and all of that, so that's why you could get some differences now. But so this was, in theory, the 4th best copy that he saw out of those 12. Now, that actually does fall into like this. There's 2 in this grade and 2 higher. That would put it maybe in that 4th position, but we don't know for sure. But this was from that original assessment, the 4th best copy of Crime Suspense Stories number 22 that, for these file copies. So if you're ever wondering what that is, that's what it is. Here we go. So they actually provide the picture of that certificate, and you can see here, Overstreet ranked the copies in each package in order of the best condition, and Cochran placed each book in a Mylar sleeve. So that's what that 4 of 12 means. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there are a lot of Gaines file copies that are out there, but people hold on to them. Like, it is unusual to see this many pop up all at once. But now let's move on to the next one here, and it's actually Crime Suspense Stories number 1. This is before they started getting super violent. I mean, you can see, like, this is in 1950. When you hit 1953, 1954, that's when you started getting the crazy violent covers where the different publishers were trying to one up each other, just who could make the most violent cover to get people's eyes and get them to buy that book. But you can see here, issue number 1. Nothing too crazy going on, on this cover here. But a 9.8 looks like a very, very nice copy of this book. 9.8 off-white to white pages. Let's look up this one. Let's see what Crime Suspense Stories number 1 would sell for, and if it's sold before in a file copy, and it has. 2022, we had one sell for $14,400. 2017, $7,100. That's kind of what I've been talking about. I've been seeing a lot of demand there, and that was even a couple of years ago for these file copies. And this one right now, sitting at $12,600. That's with the buyer's premium. I've said this before. That's what you report. That's what the person's paying. That's what gets reported everywhere. That's the number you should be paying attention to. Now, I mean, is it going to sell for more? My money is on yes. Almost every one of these that I've seen come up for sale seems to sell for more right now. And there's a lot of demand for them. Now, having 31 Gaines file copies all in the same auction, it may overwhelm some of that demand. It's possible some will slip through and people might get some good deals, but I would not be surprised if this one beats that price of $14,400. Hard to say what it would go for, but I mean, I think probably 14 to 16, but you never know. with some of these books, and especially in the excitement that comes with an auction. And this one, you can see this was 4 of 9. So he had 9 of these. This was considered the 4th best copy at that time. All right. So now let's move down to Crime Suspense Stories number 20. This is another very in-demand cover, one that has really gotten a lot hotter over the last couple of years as Crime Suspense Stories 22 really got priced out for a lot of people. All 3 of these are Johnny Craig covers. You can tell, like, he too, he changed with the times too. He started making more and more violent covers. This one, pretty gruesome cover. 9.2. This one is marked as 4 of 12 as well. So this is considered the fourth best of the 12 Gaines file copies at that time. So let's take a look at Crime Suspense Stories number 20 to see what that one might go for in a 9.2. You can see here we had a 9.0 sell in June. I think I was bidding on that one. I'm pretty sure I was bidding on that one. I can't remember. There was one of these I was bidding on Comic Connect. But a 9.0 went for 14,600. 9.2 in November went for 27,600. That feels like a high price. I wonder, I don't know if this one's going to hit that type of number. Let's see where it's at right now. Right now, this one is sitting quite a bit lower than that. Yeah, so right now this one is at 10,500. So a lot of work to get up to that number. I mean, just looking at that one, that feels like an outlier. And that wasn't even the high. 2021 had a $30,000 sale. That's a big jump. And especially when you had this 9.6 go for 31,200. I feel like this one is going to this one I actually don't think is going to hit that number. I think this one is actually going to go a little bit lower, maybe around even like 20. I wouldn't be surprised if this one goes somewhere around 20, maybe 22. But I could see this one actually coming back down some. I think that this 27,600 was maybe a little bit of an excitement, a little bit of an overpay there at the time. And I think that this one will actually go lower. But man, like these books, they are incredible to see in really high grade. You don't see them very often. I mean, it's a 9.2. It's got some flaws. You know, it's got a little crease up here. I mean, that's a decent crease for a 9.2, I'll say. Spine looks pretty good. Bottom edge looks good. There's a little crease here. Yeah. Not a big fan of that crease. That could be what's hurting it some. I mean, that's a pretty big crease for a 9.2. Like even for a Golden Age book, like I know some people don't like that you get kind of like different grading in the different eras, but you do. I mean, you just do. And that, I don't know. That feels a little, that's a big crease to me for a 9.2, but maybe that's, you know, that could be why that price is down some on that book, why that one's not going quite as high. Now, this is another very in-demand cover. I think this is a Feldstein cover. Let's see here. So Crime Suspense Stories 19. Yeah, this is an Al Feldstein cover, which he doesn't normally do the super violent covers like this. That's why this one always really catches my attention, and why I think this one is so in demand is because it feels really out of character for that cover artist. We got a 9.6. This one was 4 of 11 and at $9,300 right now. So let's take a look at issue number 19 to see if a 9.6 has ever sold before. It has, but not since 2003. 2003 went for $1,035. That was the last time. Let's see if there are any 9.8s of this one. There aren't. So no 9.8s of this. 9.6 is actually top of census, and there are 3 of them. So I could see this one getting some pretty big numbers once it goes live. The fact that you haven't had a 9.0 or above sell for 12 years. Last sale 2012. And then we have this 9.6, which ties top of census. I could see this one. This could be a $20,000 book, maybe even more. I wouldn't be surprised if it went above 20,000. I mean, this is a very well-known, desirable cover. I know it's weird to say when it's like this woman being choked out underwater in the, you know, on the cover, but it tends to be, the more gruesome, violent it is, the more in demand it is. But very desirable cover. Top of census, only 3. I mean, I would buy that all day at 10 grand. You know, like if it's still there, like when this thing goes live, I mean, I would buy that all day at 10 grand. But yeah, used in Seduction of the Innocent too. So it's one of the Seduction of the Innocent books. Let's take a look at this one. I mean, from the distance, this one actually looks really nice. I mean, yeah. That is a pretty solid looking book. You got a little bit of like the pushed in staple there, not a big deal. You got a little something going on down in that corner. I don't know if that's the art or if that's a missing piece. I don't know. I can't tell from there. But then top edge, top corner, everything else looks really nice on this copy. Oh yeah, and you've got the Feldstein little signature block there. Let's see what the grader's notes say. Light fraying left center of spine, light scuff left center of front cover. So I mean, this is a very, very nice looking book, and I think it's probably going to go quite a bit higher when it hits the live bids. Now I'm not going to go through all of them. I don't have time to go through 31 books, but I'll touch on a few. And so, like, for me, this one isn't really as interesting. Like the foot cover is a little weird, but we got Crime Suspense Stories number 11, a 9/8, and this is what I'm talking about. You've got these 9/8s out there too, and like I've said before, there are 9/9s as well. And but we've got a 9/8 Crime Suspense Stories number 11. Man, if you wanted to get the top collection from Crime Suspense Stories, if you just go in and buy all these, you're going to be pretty close. I feel like you may have this. I wouldn't be shocked if this is this came from maybe one of the best collections that exists. But yeah, 9/8 Crime Suspense Stories 11. Got number 7. So again, you can see it's got implied violence on the cover here, but this is an earlier one, 1951. You don't have that actual violence that's happening like in 22, where that axe is being used to take off that woman's head. Then we've got some that, like this one, the medical cover, that one isn't as interesting to me for a cover. This one isn't quite as interesting to me for a cover. I mean, but the ones that I like I like going for the more gruesome ones, the ones that really like catch your attention. Like, I don't think I'd even want this one. This one is creepy. This one is super creepy. We've got Crime Suspense Stories number 24. It's something about the eyes, like the eyes and the guy here that are just kind of like rolled back and everything. This is a pretty disturbing cover. Who did this cover here? Let's see here. A George Evans cover. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty disturbing cover. 9.6. Let's look up this one. It's sitting at $6,600 right now. Crime Suspense Stories number 24. And let's get an idea what this one might sell for. So a 9.6 has never sold before. So 9.6, let's see here. 3 and 9.6, none higher. So there are no 9.8s of this book either. 9.4 did sell recently for $3,360. Top of census, I would expect somewhere between 8 and 10. Like, you'll often see around a double when you go up in these really high grades. And then the fact that it's tied for top of census, I think 8 to 10,000 is pretty realistic for this book. And it's sitting at 6,600 right now. All right, let's scroll down and see if we can find some other crazy ones. Now here, this is another very desirable cover. So we've got Crime Suspense Stories number 23. That whole run right there. I mean, there's just a bunch of them, like book after book, that are very, very desirable covers. 9.4 white pages, sitting at 5,160. So we've got number 23 and 9.4. Yeah, 26,400 just sold in August. Is that the right one? Yeah. So let's see if this is the same one, because this looks like a heritage sale. I'm curious if this is actually. Yeah, let's check this one out. So that number just tells me it's a heritage sale. Now, okay, so the 9.4 here was from that Roger Hill collection. So that could be. This is what I talked about in that other video. There were big premiums being paid for the Roger Hill books because people wanted to, it came across as people wanted to own one of his books. And so that, I feel like this number won't be reached here. It's possible that somebody will just look at GPA and go, oh, the last one sold for 26,400, and it'll get bid up similarly. That is a very possible outcome here. But I think, let's see, there's 5 and 9.4, one higher. Let's see what the higher one is, if it's a 9.6 or a 9.8. So there's 1.96, there's no 9.8s. So we've got this one sitting at 5,160. I was seeing often like double the price for those Roger Hill books. So I'm just going to go and roughly say that this one's going to go for about 10 to 12,000. I think 10 to 12,000 is where I'll estimate it, but we'll see. I have no idea how that Roger Hill sale is going to impact this. But I think 10 to 12,000 is very possible. This one is not selling in that first part of the auction. You can see here, there's 2 days left until this one. This one sells a little bit later, but my estimate's gonna be 10 to 12. This is a great looking book. It is a dark cover. Let's, get in close, check this thing out. And we've got a little fraying at the top there. Just a tiny bit of spine wear. But yeah, this is an incredible looking copy. It really is. Like 9/4, 1954. This is a really good looking book. Yeah, so that is a nice copy. I could see this one, like I said, hitting 10,000, somewhere in that range, 10 to 12. All right. Now we've got 2 more of these big Craig books. We've got Crime Suspense Story 17, the suicide cover. I know, when I first saw this one, I used to think that this was someone else shooting him, but it is actually his own arm. You can see it in the mirror that's in the background there. And then we've got Crime Suspense Story 16, which is also a Craig cover. The just like crazy guy on the cover with the razor blade. Both 9.6s. So let's check both of these out, because these are both pretty in-demand, desirable books. I'm actually surprised how low this one is sitting right now, sitting at 4,920. I would expect this book to get a lot of bids going into the live bidding. So we've got issue number 17. There is a 9.8 out there, and that went for 14,400 back in 2021. There's this 9.4 here. I think this was maybe the one I was bidding on. I think this was, I don't remember for sure though, but went for 8,200 back in or earlier this year. And then here we've got a 9.6 off-white to white pages. I can almost guarantee this 9.8 would go for way more today if it sold. I bet it would break 20 I don't think it would have a hard time breaking 20 if it sold today. I could see this 9.6 going for like 12 to 15. I think maybe on the lower end of that, but 12 to 15 wouldn't really surprise me with this book being one of the real desirable covers, super violent cover, 9.6. It's not top of census, but it's got a little dust shadow on the left here, but overall looks like a pretty solid book. Yeah. Yeah, that is a good looking book. I had a copy of this that I bought raw and got graded as well. This is a nice looking copy. So, it's obviously it's a 9.6. But yeah, that's a good looking book. And like I said, I would not be surprised if it gets quite a few more bids going into its live sale in 2 days. All right, now let's check out number 16. Another 9.6. I think this one is off-white pages. Yep, off-white pages sitting at 4,800. Another book that just like the color scheme on the cover, it really pops, especially in high grade when they're clean. They don't have any big creases or anything. So let's check out issue number 16. See what a 9.6 might go for. So again, we had a 9.8 that sold in 2022 for 7,800. 9.6 hasn't sold since 2006. Let's see if this is the only one or if there are others. So there are 2 in 9.6 6 in 9.6 and 2 higher. So there are 6 9.6 copies out there, 2 higher. And we've had an 8.5 go for 1,500 or 1,600, an 8.0 go for 1,000, a 6.0 go for 900. I think again, if the 9.8 came up today, it would break 10. Probably like 12,000. This isn't quite as desirable of a cover, but it's still a pretty cool Craig cover. I think 6 to 8, for this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes higher. It just, like I said, I've seen so much demand for these. It's sitting right now at 4,800. That's not too far from 6. So I could see this one maybe hitting like 8. And again, wouldn't surprise me if it went higher than that. But yeah, just so many just crazy covers and just in incredible grades. We've got another 9.8 of MD number 1. We've got the Crime Suspense Stories 27. I think this is the last issue of the run, and a 9.2. And just kind of scrolling down here, here's another pretty violent one, another broken neck, hanging cover, and a 9.6. and just a lot of them coming up for sale. I mean, you can see here, like not all of them are priced super high. This one right here is sitting at like $1,200 with the buyer's premium. This one, not even at 1,000. 9.2 for Crime Suspense Stories 2021, sitting at, I mean, look at that. 9.2, sitting at $960. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get more bids than that, but you don't have to necessarily pay $10,000, $20,000 for a Gaines file copy. The one that I had picked up previously, I think I paid maybe around 2,000 or something. So you can get Gaines file copies without having to pay an arm and a leg. It's just that you can see here, it's like this isn't a super violent cover. It's got the implied violence. The woman killed this man and is burying him out in the woods, or someone killed this man and they're burying him out in the woods. Versus, Crime Suspense Stories 22, where it's a super violent cover just one issue later, or 17 just a few issues earlier, or 20 a few issues earlier. So there's all kinds of variety of these in this auction. So if you're interested in checking any of these out, they're coming up for sale in the next, couple days on this Heritage auction. Again, not sponsored by them. I just like checking out all these like incredible books, and I always like watching these auctions because it gives you an idea of what this segment of the market is going after. And like I said, I've really noticed that there's been a lot of demand for these Gaines file copies, and we'll see if that holds true in this auction, because there are going to be quite a few of them coming up for sale across a pretty wide range of prices. With this one, I don't think there's any question that this is the one that's going to go for the most money, but we'll see what it ultimately sells for. I think around 90, which would be cool to see. I like seeing big sales. I would love to have it hit a record. A record would be really cool to see too. But let me know in the comments, are you planning on bidding on any of these, or have you already bid on one? Are you bringing one of these home soon? Did you win it in the auction? Let me know, and I will see you on the next video.